This lesson we will talk about corrective shapes, morphing and posing, and there is a reason I skipped showing you weight painting on a, let's say, a real life model, since I believe this is an integral part. So weight painting is really a first step that you will do. Then actually when you encounter a situation that you cannot achieve a good deformation with weight painting, you will then help yourself with corrective shapes, and that will slowly introduce us to morphs and poses. So this will be really interesting. I will actually delete all the weights on this hand, so you can actually see we have some weighting applied. And Sina40 does a pretty good job with auto weighting, but you have to know what you are doing. I'll shift click on this weight tag, and you can see I have all the joints selected. Okay? I can, for example, to do that, because you don't have an option to select them all. If you right click, there is no select all command, so you can select the first one and shift click on the end, and it will select all in between. Okay, this pretty much works in Object Manager, and it's really useful. So zero out the weights, so we have no weights at all. And now if we move our guy, you can actually see it doesn't deform the mesh regardless of this weight tag and the skin deform. We have no weights applied to joints. Let's ease up on the process and drop a few things we will often use, so we just have them accessible really quickly. So I will most certainly need this weight tool, and I'll go to edit pellets mode, so I can simply drop it in here in the viewport, close that, exit the edit pellets mode, and we also would like to have this user data controls for those fingers, because I will be weighting them and I want to be able to quickly adjust the extreme poses and stuff like that. So you can select all this with the shift key pressed down, and you will simply select the last one, and it will select all the guys in between, just like in the weight manager. So let's right click and say add to HUD, and control drag it, and just force this HUD guy to be shown always. This lesson I will show you how to work your way through quite a few problems. So let me show you the actual problem we will have now, and I will add this index finger also to HUD. Okay, something like this. I'll force it to show always. And the problem is actually if I group these two guys, I say make group. Problem is I actually cannot say which of this bend, side or curl is assigned to which finger, especially if I will add all 5 of them. That would be really bad. Of course I could guide myself by the arrangement in Object Manager, but this is really not good. We should be able to have names for the sliders. Okay, so I want to have some sort of a group name, so I can know which finger those controls belong to. I can remove this complete group, and the solution is to do something here in the user data. So let's say we want to manage our user data and create let's say a separator and name it according to a finger. Well, that is a really bad idea. And it's a really bad idea since it will break the rig. We have Espresso that is almost all in relative mode, so it works currently as it is according to arrangement of these guys. If you add something, the arrangement will be lost, and you can really try it out on a simple example. If I do that right now, I will break the rig, and this is not what I want to do. This is a real problem. So let's try and be creative here. We can actually rename these reset sliders and possibly add a prefix here. So I will add a thumb, let's say an underscore, and now I'll know that these controls really belong to a thumb. So let me do that for this index finger also. So manage user date, I will add a prefix that will be called index with an underscore. You can use any naming convention you like. I prefer that naming with underscore. You can prefer something else, I'll say middle here with the underscore. And you see, sometimes you just cannot avoid doing manual work. This is a ring. We will hit OK. And the last one is the pinky, guys. So pinky underscore here. You see, I'm jumping through these boxes with my tab key. So it simply jumps to the next one. I will just say OK. Okay, so now we are ready to actually drop them in the heads-up display. Always take time to build this, let's say, helpers in the viewport. It will really help you in the long run. You may actually feel that it will take time to create them, but this will benefit you in the future. You will actually spend a lot of less time in doing weights or morphing or stuff like that. So let's force the always. Let's go with the next guy, add to HUD. And I'm doing this one by one simply because it's not possible to add them all in a one go. I really tried because it doesn't work even if these reset sliders would have completely the same name. It simply doesn't work. There is a limitation and Maxon should do something about it. So let us continue. So this is the middle guy. I'll just force the show always. Ring guy. And add to HUD. Control drag. Show always. Let's go to pinky. Once again, add to HUD. Control drag. Show always. Okay, this wasn't that hard. I will just arrange them a bit before I add them to group. Something like this. It's somewhat nice and clean and neat. And I'm using a graphics tablet. That is really good idea if you are doing 3D in general or some sort of a painting. It's a lifesaver. Mouse is simply bad idea. So if you're using a mouse, ditch it and get yourself a tablet. Your fingers and your joints will be very grateful to you. Now I have shift selected them all and I will say make group. And now you can actually see we have a name that can help us differentiate which sliders are belonging to which finger. I could have probably skipped this, but I want to show you the real workflow. I will just right click here and remove this display name. So I have just this small arrow that is really collapsing and expanding the menu. Okay, so you can simply have it collapsed and it's really nice, and when you need those controls you will simply expand. One more thing is I will force this to be shown always. Okay, that's about it for the finger controls. We just arrange this a little bit so it's kind of a little bit more neat. Okay, and we can continue. Let's do some weights. We'll again open this weights manager, and here under auto weight we'll simply say calculate in this default mode and see what we get. Here under display I have previously set this to multicolor, so it will color each joint weights a bit different. Okay, so let's try it out a bit and see how does it behave. We zoom out a bit, can have a go, and you can see actually that the arm behaves pretty good, but we have a major issue here, and I'll just enable spherical mode here on my skin deformer and have somewhat different deformations. If I enable my hypernerves, you can actually see the smoothed version of this, and this arm part is pretty good. It will probably take a little of fine-tuning to be perfect, but how do we solve this major issue here? That is really a problem. Well, if you take a look, this palm joint, I will disable the hypernerves, and you can actually see it doesn't have any weighting applied at all. So this palm joint has zero influence on this mesh. And why is that? We stated the auto weight command. Why did it not weight all joints? Well, the answer is this number of joints. So basically here you are seeing in the auto weight how many joints can influence a mesh. And since our palm joint is actually not a part of any joint hierarchy, you can see there are nulls between palm joint and, let's say, these other joints. It will be not taken into consideration. Simply, it's not a part of two joint hierarchy. If we drop this value to 1, we would actually weight this guy. And this auto weight default distance and two joint number and 80% of fall-off is absolutely the best thing you can gain from auto weight. There is no better setup here. It works pretty much in 99% of the cases. There are rare occasions where this other mode will do a little bit more better result, but you will get problems on something else because these other modes simply don't guarantee that every single point on the mesh will be weighted. So stick to this distance mode, two joints in 80%. It's really a good starting point. This is pretty much the maximum the auto weight will do for us. Now it's time for some blocking in of the weights, and what we want to do is actually we want to assign first some sort of weighting to this mesh also. So this part, it doodle it for you. So roughly this part of the hand would be assigned to this palm joint. Let me clear the doodle frame and delete this guy. So first I want to block this in. So I will select the weight tool. So if you want to block something in, you will simply add 100% of weights in absolute mode. Okay. So I want to add weights to a specific part of mesh. So I will select a specific part of mesh. I will simply do something like this and simply fill the selection. So I will firstly block all these weights. I will assign them all to this palm joint. Okay. So let me enable my weight tool and double check the settings. So I want to apply 100% of weights absolutely to this selected part of mesh. Okay, so I will shift double click, I will open my weights manager, and be sure when you want to weight something to a certain joint, make sure you have it selected either here in the object manager or here in the weights manager. Okay? Otherwise you won't get this apply. This apply all simply means it will apply throughout the mesh. And if you don't have any joint selected, you won't have the option to apply it simply on selected. So this apply should probably have selected in its name. Okay, so let's hit apply and see what happens. And now I've weighted this hand to this palm joint. So it's 100% controlled by this palm joint. So I really blocked it in. Let's now work our way with, let's say, a thumb finger. So we want to block it out also. So we will paint our weights roughly and then we will refine and refine. So let's once again select only the part of our mesh which should logically belong to that joint chain, in this case the thumb joint chain. So I will select this loop and simply fill this selection along with the shift key, so this guy will stay selected also. Okay, so something like this. I will open up my weights manager once again, and now I want to weight all this to these guys, so to these three guys. And since there are three of them, I want to use this auto weight, so it will weight them all in a nice manner. So let's hit calculate, and nothing will happen. Nothing will happen simply because this auto weight will not override the existing weighting. We have to zero values on already weighted joints, so we will have to select the palm joint again, simply to state zero strength in absolute mode, and simply hit apply. So it will apply zero weights to this thumb. Okay, so let's zero it out, and now we have a situation where we can select this actual thumb joint chain and apply an auto weighting on them. So let's hit calculate, and you can see we have a result. It would be a good idea to open our controls up and let's set this thumb finger to some sort of extreme pose. This would be an extreme pose, and you can see the problem. The weights here should be smoothed out between this palm joint and this first joint. So let's actually reset that to 0 and do just that. Let me just minimize this guy so it will be always available here, and I will select palm joint, this first thumb joint, and simply in my weight tool I will select the mode smooth. Okay? So now I can really smooth things out between those two, and let's see how this will work in this maximum extreme posing. Let's see what happens if I do a little bit of smoothing, and it's a little bit better, and we'll have to do some manual work on it. Now you can even move this out of the way, select the weight tool, and do a small value here, something like 5, go into add mode, and try to find the weighting which will do the best for this deformation. So if I will add a little bit to this palm joint, we could even increase this value a bit. So you can see I will probably paint those weights pretty good eventually. It will be somewhat acceptable, but we will hit a problem with it. And you can see that this part is actually weighted 100% to this first joint of the thumb. And the problem is, no matter how much will I paint the weights, either way, it will not matter if I paint weights to either palm joint or this first joint, I still will not be able to get really those vertices out as I want them. So let me just emphasize that a bit. So I will play with this bend slider a bit, and you see this would be some sort of a maximum position. And the problem is, you can paint all you want, you will not be able to move those vertices really in the position that you want. You'll probably run into a situation where you weighted something in the extreme. Okay, so let's say you want to fix this area. Let's go all the way into bend, and see this area pretty much looks decent enough. It is good enough. It will be acceptable once we enable these hyperners, but this area is a problem. So you can paint once again with the thumb, or paint with anything else. Paint with this one guy. It won't go upwards simply because that's the way it is. So you have no way to pull those vertices upwards, and therefore you cannot achieve a really nice deformation. Because if you do the same pose with your hand, you will see that there is some sort of a nice arcing here when you do it like this, and you simply cannot achieve that with standard weighting. I will clear this doodle guy, and one solution would be to modify the existing geometry and have some sort of a better results at these extreme poses. Let me reset the sliders. But that's really a bad idea, and it's simply a bad idea because it will all work fine if you have let's say a minimal invasions on your model. But what if you have to have big corrections, and what if you simply cannot do that? And most probably what will happen is that you will come back and forth from fixing your mesh in an endless loop. And this is where we have to have a corrective shape. So it's a really good idea to do the weights to their maximum. So the maximum quality and deformation you can achieve, especially in deformations where you have really a long range of motion, so a big radius of motion. So for example, that would be in this hand joint. Here is the problem, and the good idea is to weight it properly for the one extreme and do the corrective shape morph for the other. Okay, so let me reset the position in rotation, and we will do just that with morphs, but I will just stray a bit and show you what morph is in a separate little example. So let me create a new scene, and let's create, for example, a plane object, and we'll add, let's say, 5 segments to it and hit C button and show you what actually morphing is. Morphing is basically a way to deform the mesh, to record the deformations, and to be able to blend between them. It will be much more clear when I show you. So to use that feature inside Scena 4D, you will go under Tags, Character Tags, and you will activate this extremely robust and powerful Pose Morph tag. And in this case, we want to morph, let's say, a position of the, let's say, points. So here you will have a base pose. This is the pose of your mesh, the standard pose. Watch what happens if you select this pose 0, go to point mode, and let's say select a few of these points and simply drag them upwards like this. Now those point positions are recorded in this position. So if you would go to animate mode and you want to animate your pose, watch what happens. So this is the 0% strength for that pose, so you can actually blend between them. And this pose morph is so powerful that this is beyond your imagination. You can morph, you can see already position, scale, rotation, UVs, parameters, even user data, hierarchy, and so on and so forth. This is extremely powerful and welcome addition to release 12. It is really, really awesome, and you will see that. So these morphs are often used as a corrective shape, as an additional layer of tweaking the geometry, so those deformations would be really, really believable. Okay, so we can pretty much close this scene and get back to our real problem. So let's create a corrective shape for this area when it's in extreme. So we'll pull this curl up also and this bend up, and you can see the problem here. Even if you enable hyper nerves, you will see the problem. This is actually quite good. We could leave it this way. So the problem is we cannot properly weight this area so it would look nice, no matter to which joint we assign to. This one won't work, neither this one, and we don't have the ability to, let's say, add it to some other joint, and it would really complicate things. We'll just delete this dual guy. Let's add a pose morph tag to our thumb and activate the points, since we will be deforming the points of the mesh. It is a good idea to lock this base pose just to be sure that you have a starting position that you actually cannot break. We will also solve a little problem that will pop up in the next few minutes, and I'll just filter out these joints. They're really kind of in the way, and they're distracting me for actually to be able to see what do I have to do with this mesh. I can also collapse this. So now you will simply select your mesh, go into point mode, and let's say that you want to tweak these points into a new position. Okay, so watch what happens. This is good. Okay, so how about this one? This is also good. Let's see in this direction. And what about this one? You see we have some oddity here. Let's try even this one. See how I actually pull these points? Let me disable this hypernerves guy. So let's try maybe this one and see what happens. And you can see we are pulling upwards and the point is going actually to the right. And that is a big problem if you want to solve something. It's all good here since this area is not deformed. But what about areas here? And you can see this. It goes to the right even though I'm going upwards, and this is really silly. I want to simply pull it away and adjust in the direction I desire, and even if I try on the old axis I will have pretty weird results. So what is going on here? The issue here is that these points actually have a different axis orientation now since they are deformed with this joint. And to fix this, there is a nice deformer in Cina 4D, which is called a correction deformer. Here it is, the second one. And all you have to do is simply you will add the correction deformer to your mesh. So to do that, you will select your mesh here, and if you hold down the Shift key and select the correction deformer, it will be made a child of your mesh. And now we have another oddity, and this is also another problem we will solve. We can see actually the mesh in one position and some sort of a wireframe representation of the mesh in the other position. So what is going on here? What is actually happening right now is that this correction deformer is executing before the skin deformer, and this is not good. So as far as this correction deformer is concerned, the mesh is in default state simply because this skin deformer, which actually holds all the deformation of these joints, did not execute. So as far as this correction deformer is concerned, this skin guy doesn't exist. So as we said, it is another priority issue, and as you may remember, calculations in Cina 4D are made from top to bottom in the object manager, and in the case of tags, they're happening from left to right. That is why you have these various options for setting priority, but in this case, there is no such option for correction deformer. So you will simply have to put it after the skin deformer and watch what happens. It's all good now. Since it knows where those points are, the skin deformer executed, told him, hey, I moved the points in the other position, and now this correction deformer actually understands where those points are. The reason for this correction deformer is actually it corrects that axis problem. Okay? With it you can actually correct those points. You will not have the issue we had with our axis, so it all works properly. But beware, you have to select points while your correction deformer is enabled. You have to have it selected. If you select the mesh itself, the problem will stay. Okay? So do your corrections on the correction deformer. So let's create that shape, and here under the pose morph tag we will enable points, and if we will try to record something for this new pose, what happens? Absolutely nothing. It won't record it. Let's undo that, and the reason is because it is assigned to this arm. It doesn't take into account this correction deformer, so you have to change this mixing mode. I will change the mixing mode to correctional, and of course I want to use all deformers, so I want this morph to happen after the deformer, so I will enable this post deformers guy. So let's give it a shot now. And now actually you can select your mesh. Let's select the same point. And once those two things are enabled in the morph, you can actually move and tweak your points on the mesh itself. You don't have to use correction deformer anymore. Let me just show you that. You see, we don't have that axis problem we had. If you would delete this pose morph guy, we would instantly have that problem. So we told it we want to use a correctional morph and pose deformers. So all these deformers, skin and correction, will execute, then we will use new position of the points. Now actually if I modify, let's say this point to this, let's say extreme position, and you can see if I drop this down it will go back to its original value. Okay, so let me undo that, and I'll tweak these points just a bit, just a tiny bit, so we have some sort of a visual feedback on those points. So that morph will be, let's say, pronounced. Let's pull those vertices just a bit. I will tweak them just a bit so you can actually see the result of the morph. Something like this. So now it's the time really to, let's say, somewhat repair the mesh, repair the deformations. So you will use maximum you can with, let's say, weighting, and only when you come to a point where weighting simply doesn't work anymore, you can do these correctional shapes. I really went a little bit overboard, but that doesn't mind, since I just want to show how you will do something. Okay, so you will naturally spend more time doing this, and this is just a basic repair. Okay, so let's go to animate mode and simply see what it does. You can see clearly the difference. This is the morph, the new position at 100%, and this is the 0 value. I'll go all the way, go on edit tab, and I will simply rename this thumb correction. Okay, so be consistent and do logical naming. So you should now go to your base pose, just to make sure you don't accidentally do some moving of points while in that morph. This could really mess things up. What I want to do now is I want to tell this morph guy to be enabled only when, let's say, reset those sliders. Let's say I want that morph to be enabled only when this bend guy is when this bend guy is at -100, and you can build a simple expressor for that. So this joint is, if I enable them here, you will see them. This is this one here, so joint number 1, and you can actually see that this -100, if you take a look here, is actually a 75-degree value. So that would be a job for a simple expressor, and I will just reset this and create that simple expression. Then what we actually need is a joint, and we will say that its rotation h, in this case you can read it out from here, will control this thumb correction morph. And since you already can't simply drag those guys into Espresso, you can drag the complete tag inside and simply find that value. So we are looking for a thumb correction strength. So we will need a range mapper, as you probably assume. So let's drop it inside Espresso, calculate range mapper, and put this as an input, and define this to what we need. So the input range would be the degrees, and in this case that is from 0 to 75, so let's put just that, and let's put 75 here. and the output will be in percent, because that's how morphs work, in percent. And we will say here in range mapper output percent from 0 to 100. So luckily, once we connect those guys and start our bend, and we have to be in a morph animate mode, see how it makes a difference. And now you actually cannot control that strength of the morph. So this is just a corrective shape. So this bend guy will control the amount of that morph, and that is exactly what we need. I hope this is understandable enough, and you can see how rigging can become really complicated, and there is simply no way around it. This usage of these corrective shapes is very usual, and I don't think there is a point for you to watch me doing all the fingers and then doing the corrective shapes. That would take hours to do, and I want you to get maximum information for your money. And I hope this is understandable enough. I just want to mention a few things, maybe possibly regarding this rig. So, for example, let's say you activate the user data option here under pose morph, and here under inclusion you can actually include objects and hierarchies of what should be morphed, regardless of where this pose morph sits. So one usage of this pose morph that really pops to mind is actually creating poses for this finger. So I would, let's say, enable this user data and simply pose the fingers and create morph. I would record that state, so I would have some sort of hand pose, like open hand, closed hand, thumbs up or something like that. So you can imagine the power that lies in pose morph tag. One thing that is really important that I do almost always is I keep things nice and clean, and I will convert that to X group and rename it. In this case, this will be just a correction. Collapse it, and we have a nice and neat espresso once again. So let's go to our next lesson. We will expand a bit on morphing, which is really fun.